On today's Angle of Pursuit podcast, Brian and I are going to talk all things Darlington with practice and qualifying in the books. Brian is coming to you live from Las Vegas, so we'll get some look inside from a Vegas perspective. Plus, we'll build lots of DraftKings lineups, talk about our thoughts over there, and get everything set for Sunday. Let's jump into it.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack. Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on grass.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining live from Las Vegas. Darlington practice and qualifying is in the books. We are here to talk all things DraftKings, talk all things betting. Before we do that, how much did you enjoy the full week one of college football?
It was incredible. I had to get up at 5 o'clock this morning for work. So, of course, I made my way over to the sports book at around 6, and I sat there for 3 hours working and making bets until the games kicked off. And I was there until about 5:30 this evening. So
It's just the best.
It was glorious. Let me just say that. We were chatting prior to jumping on here. The morning slot was awesome for me, and if I would have just stopped there, I would be sitting pretty right now. But of course, in Vegas fashion, I gave it all back during the afternoon and evening window. But I still have plenty in the tank for the NASCAR slate, and I am excited to get into this because there were some comers and goers in terms of lines post-practice and qualifying.
Yeah, there's a few names I really want to pick your brain about and see where we can get to, because I think there's a couple interesting names. Some guys have bubbled up, some guys have fallen back. Lots to get into, but as we always do, let's start with DraftKings. Let's build a line and let's run through the whole player pool and kind of figure out where our heads are at, because obviously, unlike last week, you don't want to just load up on the back guys and kind of put it all together. But there's a lot to potentially get into this week. And we can figure out kind of where our head's at. As I mentioned in the first on Wednesday, 4 of the last 5 drivers have started inside the top 5 spots, or 4 of the last 5 winners. So that's something to think about from an outright perspective. But if we're picking drivers that are starting near the front that we think can win, we should probably consider that just a little bit. So Denny Hamlin, the only 11K driver, starting second. Martin Truex starting 31st at 10.8. Kyle Larson starting 18th at 10.5. William Byron 23rd. Like, that trio was the top of the board when we talked. And obviously from an outright perspective, most of those guys are still kind of there, but it is wild to see Truex 31st, Larson 18, Byron 23, and then Kyle Busch rounds out the 10K range. So I guess, where's your head at in terms of this range, and who can we try and squeeze in? Because I feel like all of these names are very, very compelling.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I checked it out today. If you watched Ryan Larkin's like quick picks show on YouTube, he does daily fan racing. He talked about the dominator for this race is going to be extremely important, and normally that comes from the guys starting on the front row or within the first couple of rows. I mean, we got 367 laps here, and it's been extremely hard to pass. And so I think where you're starting, it's going to be based on whether or not you're going with Christopher Bell and saving salary. I mean, we'll talk about him as we get down into the 9K range, or in my opinion, if you want to go with Denny Hamlin, starting on the front row at 11K, the highest price guy, for a really good reason, because he looked incredible in practice. He looked good in qualifying. He went out and won the Xfinity race. This is a track he's won 4 times in his career. He's top 10, I think, in 17 of the 22 times he's ran here in the Cup Series. Like, he loves this track. He's always been really good here. He's starting on the front row, and if he can get out to a lead, we've seen Truex do it in the past where he leads 180, 190 laps. I think Denny Hamlin is in in the equipment this weekend to potentially do that. So for me, I would start that right there with the 11 car.
Yeah, 11 is probably my favorite. I think he is going to win the race on Sunday. As the week has gone along, I've gotten way
Yeah.
more excited in him. Obviously, showed up in practice, showed up in qualifying, a lot to like there. I am going to push us, though. I really want to see if we can build a Hamlin and Truex lineup. And I know Truex is going to be insanely popular given where he's starting, but I think if you can squeeze two of those guys in and still build a lineup, that's how you get unique. You don't need one specific driver to be unique. You just have to build a different lineup. So if it's two guys in the 10K or higher range, if it's, maybe, figuring out how to be a little bit different in the field. Obviously Byron and Larson are incredibly compelling given where they're starting. Our thoughts coming in on Hendrick as a team. We'll have to talk about them from a betting perspective, but over on DraftKings, like they're hard to just jump over to. Like it's gonna be, you might just have to build a few lineups and kind of mix and match the group because they're all compelling. They all have a real shot to win this race. And they're all fighting for legit playoffs points. So it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, of those two, I think Kyle Larson is probably of the handful of guys that have the best car this
Yeah.
weekend. Like obviously Byron is always fast, and so I think he just kind of is in there by default. But of the group of guys that I think can win, I think Kyle Larson falls in that bucket. It's just starting a little bit further down the field. He's going to be rostered in a ton of lineups, and it's going to be
Yeah.
difficult to get his way to the front with a guy as strong as Hamlin already starting up there.
Well, and I wonder because Larson's starting 18th and Byron's starting 23rd, and Byron's a little bit cheaper, if people just kind of naturally gravitate towards there. And I mean,
Exactly.
obviously people will be on Larson, but I wonder if, especially because Byron's been so dominant,
Yeah, true.
maybe
Maybe you get a little
people
discount on Larson.
just a little bit, like 15-20% instead of like 40 or 35. And obviously it's going to be contest specific and whatnot, but a lot to think about there. The 9K range is also really compelling. We got Kevin Harvick, 9,800, starting 7th. I think he's going to be kind of there all day. So I don't know if he really does a lot for me given where he's starting. I think he's a top 3 to top 7 car. It's kind of there all day, does his thing. More interested in him from a betting perspective than over on DraftKings. Ross Chastain, somebody you were excited about, starting 27th. 9,600, obviously an opportunity to try and make some noise, move forward, do some stuff. And then some front runners. Christopher Bell starting on the pole, Tyler Reddick
Really
starting
fast.
3rd, and Joey Logano at 9K starting 6th. I know he's your nemesis, so you're always going to have a hard time there. But I guess, do you have interest in Chastain given how poor he looked in practice and qualifying? And of the potential early dominators not named Denny Hamlin, is there somebody in this range that you're gravitating towards?
I honestly, Bell has kind of left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But at 9,400 starting on the pole, if he can just get out to the lead, like we said, like it's really hard to pass here. So if he jumps out to the lead early, he's probably going to get you a ton of laps led early on, which would kind of mitigate the risk of, falling back later in the race. And yes, to go back to your first question, I love Ross Chastain in DFS. He was actually pretty damn fast as we got later into runs during practice and 20 and 25 lap runs there. So
Yeah.
I think Chastain presents a lot of opportunity, both in the placement market, now that his number has floated a little bit, and especially in DFS starting 27th. I think he's still a potentially, a legit top 10 car here. He's always ran really well here. Qualifying has never been his forte. So, I mean, I take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, I don't think he has the speed it's not the same speed I was expecting when I wanted to bet him to win, or I thought maybe he was a potential race winner. But from DFS perspective, I still like him.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I also think, to your point about the dominator, there's a few names. Reddick is interesting. Logano, obviously, Chris Bell, and then obviously as we jump into the 8K range, where you have Christopher Buescher starting 8th, Brad Keselowski starting 5th, Ryan Blaney starting 4th. They all make sense, and if you can get the Dominator right, you could mitigate a lot of ownership if you think it's Blaney, if you think it's Keselowski, Reddick, Logano. Like those guys are going to go overlooked, given where they're starting and kind of expectations, I think, heading into the week. Obviously, Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace, and Eric Jones round out that range. If not Denny, and if you skip over, say, a Christopher Bell, are you interested in any of these like other guys, Harvick, Reddick, Logano, Buescher, Keselowski, or Blaney as an early dominator?
I mean, just shucks, like twist my arm. Ryan Blaney goes out and is, a top 3 fastest car during practice, and then starting in the front 2 rows. Like, he has never been great at this track, but he's never qualified like this or looked this good in practice. And we talked about this. I think it was early in the week. We talked about when we were talking with Wormy about championship futures. Like, Blaney has been the class of the Penske garage, much better than Logano. I know Logano qualified 6th, but he's always kind of that little like flash in the pan type of like qualifying driver, even though his car probably stinks over the long run. So Blaney had really good metrics in practice and long run speed. So I think if you're looking at somebody who could potentially, on a pit strategy, maybe short pit during stage 1 and jump out to the lead, and then just based on that, be able to lead from the end of stage 1 through the majority of stage 2, you get, 100 lap run there where he's leading the race. I like him as the second potential dominator. And as we see, we get the betting card, I'm definitely starting to gravitate his way, which probably means you should fade him, honestly.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Ford's dominance in general and from a practice and qualifying perspective. I'm not sure I expected to see so many in there, but clearly they figured something out for this week. So it was really interesting to say. What about the rest of the 8K? Bubba Wallace starting 19th. I know you're optimistic about him. I still think he could be a force come Sunday. Starting 19th could be interesting. Eric Jones, not really on board there, but starting 20th, I could see people gravitating. And then Chase, I know he wasn't great in practice. He obviously figured some stuff out for qualifying, but he was the fastest of the Hendricks. So that's kind of interesting. I guess, do you have any interest in those 3 guys before we move into the 7K?
Of the 3, I think just based on potential placement points, I think it's Bubba Wallace. I still like him as a top 10 car this week. He's been really good here in the next gen. And he put together a great single lap speed during practice. He was the 4th overall in average practice pace. So, obviously there is speed there. It's probably going to take some navigating. And honestly, if he's not a race winning car, I think they try to play it safe, and he's, hoping for a top 10. So they're not going to get too aggressive. They're not going to do anything that'll ruin their day, kind of where they are. So yeah, I like Bubba out of this group. I think Elliott is somebody who maybe they make a couple adjustments because he's always been really good here too. But you're just kind of banking on them still going for it when they really don't have much outside of an owner's championship to still race for.
Especially with Larson and Byron being so pot committed in the middle of the championship race.
Yeah.
And to your Bubba point, I think he's somebody who could easily run in that 5 to 10 range all day. You obviously get the points that way, but I think with Kansas coming up next week, he's in a better position to not really force the win. Obviously, if he gets into that kind of front row and has a chance at the end, he's going to go for it. But I think he's going to be a guy that kind of rolls in that area. So I think that's something to think about there. 7K, we have Daniel Suarez 21st. Alex Bowman starting 24th, McDowell starting in the top 10, Ty Gibbs 17th, and Richard Stenhouse Jr. 25th rounds out the 7K range. A not very exciting range, might be an easy one to kind of skip over.
Yeah.
But if you do dip your toes into the water here, is there anyone that's worth your time?
I've heard a lot of people show some Ricky Bobby love this week. Ricky Stenhouse love this week. But to that point, I have a really hard time trusting the 47 to not spin out at least once at this track where you can get into the wall extremely easily. Or if you're racing too close to somebody, especially starting as far back as he is,
Yeah.
knowing the type of driver he is, I think there's a good possibility that he's the one that creates the first caution or he gets caught up in the first caution.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I will give him a little credit. He has been a lot more consistent. I think that's part of why he's, in the playoffs this year. Obviously got the
Yeah.
win that helped, but he was a lot more of a reliable guy, more weeks than I think we want to give him credit for. In the spring, he was basically a top 10 car almost all day and ended up finishing 13th.
But let me just point out, like we talked about on the earlier recording, like that was based on his qualifying effort.
Uh-huh.
And
Exactly.
when I went back and watched that, like passing was hard
Uh-huh.
during that race, and it was only a handful of guys that were able to actually make multiple passes on cars to move through the field. And just
Yeah.
based on where he began the race, he was able to maintain that position. So I mean, starting as far back as he is now, do you think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has the speed or even the ability to drive through the field to get
Probably
to a
not.
top 10? Like I'm not banking on that.
Yeah, and I feel like he might get a little antsy and push it a little bit too hard at a spot where he really probably shouldn't, and
Yeah.
things could get gross. 6K, Austin Dillon, Almirola, Chase Briscoe, AJ Allmendinger, Corey LaJoy, and Austin Cindric, who was the car of practice. Obviously, in terms of a qualifying run, didn't do amazing, but we saw where Logano put it in qualifying.
Yep.
We saw where Blaney put it in qualifying. I do wonder if maybe they used him as the setup for race day and set up Penske's other cars for qualifying, knowing, okay, we'll figure some stuff out with Cindric. That way we know what tweaks to make for Sunday for your guys' car.
That's an interesting point, and if that is the case, I'm going to go bet more on Ryan Blaney, because he was fast then. If he was just set up like that, the long run speed that both of those guys had were really good during practice. I just don't have faith that Cindric can keep it up there all day. I will say at $6,100, if you can just maintain like we saw at the spring race, and he's able to move 4 spots, like I think that's a decent value play. But just what we've seen this year, there's lack of consistency, just kind of fall off during these intermediate races, which is the main worry of me with a Blaney bet, with a Logano. We've seen it on these intermediates, these 1.5, like Vegas earlier this year where they qualified great and then looked like shit once the race started. So Cindric's probably a fade, but of the group, he's probably the most entertaining. I really don't like the 6K range.
Yeah, I think I'm with you from a majority of that. I do think he is interesting just because of your point. Like, it's hard to pass. So even if he's not doing great, he should still be able to maintain. But then, yeah, maybe they find a little bit of speed. They can push into the top 10, and he can help guide his teammates to a win and then finish like 4th and maybe be kind of a interesting option. I think he'll go severely overlooked. So if you are
Oh, for
in on
sure.
Cindric, based on what we've seen in practice, I don't hate the going there.
Just as long as
Uh,
his helping win is not the 22. Let's just
no.
get that out of the way, okay?
The 5K as we round out the rest of the field. We got Ryan Preece starting 34th, Ryan Newman starting 35th, Carson Hocevar.
Son of a bitch. Why did he qualify so good? Dang it.
Yeah, I think he's actually a pretty good driver, it turns out.
I know, but damn it.
Justin Haley, Harrison Burton, the Gilly Gang, JJ Yaley, Ty Dillon, and our old boy BJ McLeod. Not a lot to love here, but if you are scraping the barrel, is there a name or two that you're willing to pull out?
I mean, Ryan Priest, like just for the badass.
I think Priest is interesting. I'm just
for the
worried that
badass factor.
there's a little bit of a like just get the car out there and get around. He looks beat up. Like he looks like he just went 12 rounds with Mayweather.
He does.
And just I'm surprised he's still running, but good for him. Gilliland maybe tied like I don't know. I just feel kind of gross saying these. Harrison Burton, Justin Haley, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, because Haley has a decent past here.
Yeah.
Like I don't mind going there, especially at 5,500. All you're needing at that price is just get a top 20, and you're looking at a decent.
And I think based on what I want to do with our lineup, I think we're gonna have to come down here. So, I say we build our lineup and let's put Haley in.
All right, I like that. All right, we're gonna start with Denny then.
Yeah. All right, so we actually are going to Haley. I think is going to make this okay.
Yeah. I don't hate that.
So we have a lot we can do, obviously, with the 7K range. We can also gross it up with Harrison Burton, Gilliland, something else, and then give ourselves a little bit more wiggle room. Or we could just, dilly dally. Even like Cindric, I don't hate going there either. But I guess
I think the next ad would be somebody who you saw a lot of people talk up earlier in the week, and that's Harrison Burton. I think Rotodoc, Chase from Garage Guys, like there is a bunch of people talking up Harrison Burton on a potential top 10 this week. Just kind of this is his like favorite track. It's one of his better tracks. Starting so far back, like obviously we keep saying it. Moving up through the field is difficult, and I don't think he's the type of car to be able to do that. But at 5,400, just get us a top 25 at that point, and we're happy.
Yeah. If we get a top 20 out of him, or like 15 to 20 range, we'll be ecstatic.
Yeah, and I think he has that potential because he is pretty good here.
So that gives us a lot of room because now we have 8,650 to do pretty much anything. We can get to Bubba, we can get to Bowman if we want to do that. Let's see here. Who is interesting in like the 7 range?
Yeah, I'll let you take the tee on this one because I have an idea where I want to go, but we're gonna make a couple lineups.
So Stenhouse, Dylan, Cindric. It's kind of gross.
Now, I think another aspect of this particular Darlington race to keep in mind is that during the fall race, top 10 starters are finishing in the top 10 at a much higher rate than they do during the spring because the majority of those guys are all playoff participants. So you're looking at guys that are in good equipment, good cars that are going to crack the top 10. And
what do you think about Chase?
Look, I still like him.
I just wonder, like, I don't know what we're going to totally get out of him, but given what the rest of the lineup looks like, I think having stability might be a good thing.
I feel like if we were going to go with that, where's Harvick? Oh, he's 98.
Yeah, he's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to do an old guy starting near the front, I'd rather go to Logano.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't hate Elliott this week. He didn't have the greatest.
The other thing we can do is go one spot above him.
That's who I was going to suggest, which is why I let you take the tee here.
I'm happy to appease. I think he gives us a second early dominator.
And a third potential race winner, in my opinion, with Truex, Hamlin, and Blaney. Yeah.
And then we still have a lot we can do. I mean, Elliott's still a play. Bubba's there at starting 19th if we're in on Toyota.
That's a good call.
Let's do it. All right, let's create another lineup.
As we see Kyle getting prepped for football starting Thursday, folks.
Yeah, I did some best balls on DraftKings. I wish I had done more, but that's okay.
Oh my gosh.
Time was not on my side.
I don't have the bandwidth.
I put us into a corner with the last lineup. It's your turn to do whatever you want. Who does the first name to go in?
All right, Kyle Larson.
Okay. If we're buying the Hendrick bounce back, I want all of it. So.
All right, I'm gonna really muck this up. Put Ross Chastain in there, and then let's see what we can do.
Oh boy. All right. Is there any? I mean, we have to have.
Now we got to dip really low.
Now we need to have somebody who can lead laps.
Yeah, we're kind of screwed in the first. All right, we can ditch Ross then.
Well, let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can make this work. I mean,
all right, let's add Burton again.
Okay, easy.
I think he's starting far enough back. He's safe enough if he wrecks.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to go Gilliland? Let's see. If I do Gilliland, that gives us 9,100. So that gets us up to like Logano. So let's find our Dominator. So we could go to the Blaney gang. We could go to, I don't know that I want Brad or Busher. Tyler Reddick. Then we have to get really gross. Michael McDowell's probably not the answer.
Yeah, I'm not big on McDowell.
So it's probably Blaney if we're both interested.
We're gonna have him in both lineups though.
Yeah, I think we'll make a third one though. It's not as disgusting, but like,
all right,
that gets us to Carson Hocevar, so we can do any of these guys.
Oh,
I mean, if you want to do like Ty Dillon, we could get to 49, and that gives us 9,400. But I'm not sure that. I mean, we could do Bell.
The one thing about Bell's practice numbers, he didn't have the greatest.
No.
Like 10 lap speed. He was 5th in 10 lap, and then he didn't run a 15 lap run.
So would you rather do Dylan and Christopher Bell or Ryan Blaney and one of like Justin Haley or Todd Gilliland?
I think just to change it up, obviously I was just giving out those numbers, but I would rather go Bell just so we're not getting too exposed to Blaney, because both of these guys, in my opinion, have the variances.
And Bell has the good pit stop spot. So
Exactly.
He could just be the guy all day and you need him. And then we kind of figure it out with the Hendrick guys trying to pop up.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to build one more?
Let's do it.
Okay. We'll build one more. I'll do it in the 3 max and we'll call it a day. Let us know down in the comments, who is your favorite driver on DraftKings this week? Where is the best value, the guy you want to make sure you have as much access to as possible? So we did Bell. We did a Blaney, Hamlin, Truex. We got some Hendrick. Do you want... we don't have any Chastain. We don't have... I don't think we went...
No. We had Chastain in the last lineup.
Did we?
Yeah, it was Larson, Byron.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Ross
I thought
Chastain.
we pivoted away from him, but we kept him in there.
Yeah. That's
all right, who's going in? What's the first name? We could do Denny again. We could skip Denny and go to Truex and maybe Bell. Kyle Busch.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you. Yeah, like, what are your thoughts on Kyle Busch right now?
I still think he can win the race.
Okay, let's put him in there.
Because I think he could old man his way to the front and be a factor.
Yep.
Okay, so Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, Kyle Busch, and do you want a Kyle Busch with Penske, Kyle Busch with Toyota, or Kyle Busch with Hendrick?
Let's do Kyle Busch with Truex.
I think that's the move. I kept grabbing. Yeah,
like I do not see a world where Truex does not figure out a way to get inside the top 10 here.
Yeah. Even if it's like not really in the factor for the race, but he kind of jumps in short pits or stays
Exactly.
out longer or something and ends up, kind of in that like 12 to 15 range most of the day. That's still a huge boost from where he started.
Yeah, and I think it's important too when you're looking at this type of stuff, because DFS and betting don't always correlate, but
No.
Martin Truex Jr. is the fourth shortest odds to win the race still, starting 31st. So that tells you the type of car that he has, and like he is going to be strong, and he is going to work his way through the field. Oh man, we're getting really disgusting.
Well, I'm just seeing what that gives us salary wise to see if we're a little more comfortable with what's left.
I'm curious if we're gonna try to stay slightly different from the rest of the lineups. Why don't we go to the next clear option for a potential dominator early, and that's the guy starting third, and that's Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting call. Um,
I mean, we have both Bell, Hamlin, and Blaney already. So
yep, I like it. And then Bowman, let's see. The guys in that kind of 70 something range or below. Bowman is sort of okay. I mean, we could do like Stenhouse or Dylan. Or we have Stenhouse already.
what about Ty Gibbs starting 17th?
I mean, he just gets us, so that could make sense.
He's got a good car. Like obviously, they've got a good equipment.
Yeah. Plus, we have three guys coming from the back. So it would be nice to have a little more exposure to kind of mid pack. I think that makes sense. And then we could save that. All right.
Those are gross but lovely
Oh,
at the
yeah.
same time.
So recapping the cards from earlier in the week, Kyle Busch and Verstappen to win. That's actually gone out to like 20 to 1 now. I was tempted to re-add it, but I think I'll just leave it with what it is. Kyle Busch top Chevy, Kevin Harvick top Ford, William Byron top 5. He didn't qualify well, but it's still like priced around the same, which is kind of interesting. Larson and Truex is actually flip-flopped, which I think is kind of interesting. Harvick over Brad K, KFB over Reddick. It's my card. Brian has Bubba. Harvick is top Ford. Bubba is top Toyota. Bubba to get the pole, which obviously didn't come to fruition.
It looked good after practice.
I think I said 3 names, and I'm pretty sure Christopher Bell was one, but of course I didn't add any exposure. That's fine. And then you added the Blaney 16 to 1, which I love. So let's look at the odds now.
Oh, 18 to 1, by the way.
Oh, baby.
So that's where it's going.
Larson is your favorite. 4.5 to 1, which is pretty insane given what we saw, but he was good in practice.
Yep.
So I'm guessing that has a lot to do with where we're at. Denny, who I think is your winner, as long as 5.5 to 1. Christopher Bell, obviously sitting on the pole. Martin Truex, like 5 is like 6 or 7 to 1, despite starting the back.
Told you.
Yeah, and then Reddick is inside that 10 to 1. So if you're going to the window now, are you taking any action on any of these guys?
I really think Denny Hamlin should be the favorite. Like, I don't understand why Kyle Larson would have shorter odds than Denny, who's starting on the front row. So I think those two should be flip-flopped. And honestly, if I was a favorite better at this number, I would probably bet Denny. But I think that there's value a little bit shorter down the board. So I'm not going to get there, but I would bet Denny of these guys.
I'm betting Denny. I can't believe it, but like,
so you're being smart.
I never bet numbers like this, but it just,
yeah.
I feel like he's gonna win. I feel like he's been so good here. I feel like he wasn't amazing in practice, which is a little concerning. But he was still good, and he qualified well enough that I think he could easily win the race. If I'm betting a Toyota, he's my Toyota for sure. The next range, Kyle Busch as long as 14, Byron as long as 14, Brad K as long as 14, Chastain, then we're getting like 15, 16, and you can get Ryan Blaney 18-1 despite qualifying fourth.
Blaney qualified fourth. Okay. 5-lap average wasn't great, but he had the second fastest 10-lap average, the third fastest 15-lap average, and the second fastest 20-lap average in practice. So, I mean, he's got speed this weekend. And kind of what we saw at Charlotte, like it just all of a sudden on Sunday, boom, poof. Like I wonder if potentially, finally they found something in the long run for this car for a guy who, when he has speed, he's really good and he runs up front consistently.
The 18-1 is really compelling. I'm going to let you sit on it. I'm going to attack it a different way. But it's really...
Oh, yeah, no, I definitely think that there's better markets for him too.
But 18-1 is a really good number for a guy who looked as strong as he did.
Yeah.
And then beyond there, like Bubba at 35 is fine, but I don't really want to bet any of these guys outright.
If that number for Cindric is still alive, go bet that.
What number?
200-1?
Probably.
That can't be right.
Let's see.
Oh, yeah, somebody must have... Oh, wait, no. What the hell? He's 200-1.
Why is it not showing up for me?
Yeah, you have to click on the motorsports and then the Cup Series things.
This one, right?
Yeah. How did I find it?
Maybe that's why it's not actually there.
No, it pops up on mine. Yeah, so he's 200-1 at DK.
Huh.
And look, Cindric has been a mess this year, but he has decent speed this week.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why it's not showing up for me, but I'm gonna trust you.
I'm gonna add that just for shits and giggles. Because that number is ridiculous.
Yeah.
A tenth of a unit play on that nets 20 units, folks.
It's not bad. Kind of fun. I mean,
it's not responsible gambling. Don't get me wrong, but
no. All right, so there's a couple things I wanted to pick your brain about. Let's chat through. So I want to go down top Ford. Kevin Harvick is still plus 320. Blaney is plus 450. Cindric is 9-1. So Blaney at plus 450 is really compelling.
What the hell are these books seeing that I'm not seeing?
I don't know.
Like, I don't really understand that.
And I know I have Harvick as a top Ford, but I'm going to take some Blaney at top Ford too. And
yeah, that number seems ridiculous.
It's just too good of a number. Because, like, if you look at his top 5 number, what is it? 225, so it's like half. Top 3, 5-1.
What is Blaney's top 10 number?
Would you rather bet Blaney top 5 or top 3 for 5-1 or top Ford for 4.5-1?
Probably top Ford.
Yeah,
Because I
'cause
don't think
if
if he's the
Toyota,
top, yeah, I was just gonna say because Toyota to me has two, maybe three legitimate potential winners in Truex if he can find his way to the front, and then you have Larson, Bush, like Byron, who knows, maybe he pops late,
yeah,
and then you can't forget about Reddick, who looks strong. So yeah, I probably like the top Ford number better.
just confirming that this number. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so it looks like you can get minus 105 as your best number for a top 10, which feels pretty
Man,
nice.
that's like what am I missing?
Oh, we'll see what Wormy says. I'm guessing it's more of a history at this point, or they just simply didn't take very much money during pre, and so they're willing to take it to kind of balance out exposures. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I'm going back real quick to look at every single one. Okay, so yeah, so historically Blaney has struggled here. He only has two top
Right.
tens, with the most recent coming during the spring this year, and his best finish in the fall race is 13th.
Should we be betting Chase at minus 125? We bet him about the same in the spring race. I know he's been frustrating, but a top 10 at a place where he's been so good.
I To me, why would you bet Chase when you could bet a guy who's already starting in the top five, who had a much better car during practice, much better car in qualifying? Who cares about history? Like 2023 is clearly different than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to add the Blaney top 10. I don't really understand why the number is that. I could be completely out of my mind right now, and this normally happens for me with Ryan Blaney, but the number doesn't make sense.
What about Harrison Burton? We talked a little bit about him in DraftKings. 12-1 to top 10.
That's a good number, but he is starting further back in the field, and it's hard to get to work your way up. So, I mean, you have to factor in all of that nonsense. It's just probably baked into the number a little bit.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the Carson Hocevar number. It floated longer after he put it 15th in qualifying.
Yeah. Just talks about the Legacy Motor Club. The other one I wanted to pick your brain about. I still think that Denny Hamlin plus 230 to top Toyota is a nice number. I almost added it pre, but I didn't pull the trigger.
Yeah,
I can get Bubba at 15-1 to top Toyota.
yeah, I'm definitely not going back to that market with him. I think at best he's maybe third if one of those guys wrecks.
The other market I think is interesting is top Chevy. Like a lot of the Chevys didn't look great in practice and qualifying, especially the Hendrick guys.
Yeah,
Is
but
there
Kyle Larson is
value
going to be
on a Kyle
good.
Busch? I mean, I think William Byron could be good, but I worry that Kyle Larson's just a little bit better and finishes one spot in front of him. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of value on pretty much every Larson market this week because, in my opinion, he's probably a top 3 car.
Yeah.
Just based on practice, I don't really care about qualifying, whatever.
So he's plus 105 to top 5. And he's plus 180 to top 3. Plus 105, plus money to top 5 when he's not even.
But what's the top Chevy number?
150.
Yeah, to me that's the play.
So you'd rather bet top Chevy at 150 than top 3 at 180?
Yeah, because in all likelihood, if the Chevys looked as weak as they did during qualifying, and the Toyotas and the Fords are as strong as they have, and you have a guy like Harvick who's starting inside the top 10, he's starting 7th, by the way, for a guy that has as many top 5s as most other drivers have top 10s here. So, I mean, he's not going anywhere. It doesn't matter what his car's like. Like, he's going to park the bus and make it extremely difficult to pass him. Like, Larson could potentially finish 6th and be the top Chevy just because he's the strongest car all day. And, you know, you're crying about your top 5 or top 3 bets where you could have had plus money on him as a top Chevy car.
Yeah.
Because they didn't look great during practice.
No.
And he's the strongest of the weakest manufacturer during practice and qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, these are all phenomenal points, and neither of us are adding them. So you guys should all run to the window and make that bet because it sounds like a great bet.
Okay, just to make it even more appealing, like, so I am going to add it on Bet Rivers, one of the only other sites that have the manufacturer market.
Sorry, everybody. I tried to give you a winner.
Kyle Larson is plus 110 to be the top Chevy. The next best odds in that manufacturer, Kyle Busch, 5-1.
Yeah.
Just bet the manufacturer and don't forget about placements at that point.
Yeah. If the market on your book has been smashed, just avoid it. Find another way. Stenhouse plus money over McDowell. Chastain plus 150 against Chris Bell.
I worry about.
Yeah, so I got
Larson about track position.
I got Larson at 105 versus Truex. I wish I put more on it. It's now minus 140. Harvick is plus 105. It was minus 110
over
Keselowski.
That's a tough one because both of those guys are the crafty vets that could just stay where they
Byron plus 150. I think, and we both agree Denny's probably going to win, but plus 150 on a guy that we like so much. Eric Jones is dust. Kyle Busch over Tyler Reddick is interesting. Plus 100.
I think that's a good. I think that's a good bet because Reddick, you know, he's been susceptible to mistakes. You know, as we highlighted when talking to Wormy about the championship futures and all that stuff, which Kyle Busch is no stranger to that type of stuff either. But, you know, just in terms of what they've done at this particular track, I think Kyle Busch definitely has a.
So I already had KFB over Reddick at minus 110. I'm adding another unit for plus 100. So
like it.
I'm in. Let's go back here.
So there's another play that I really want to get to. So Kevin Harvick, I'm going to bet his top 5. I know he's not necessarily the greatest, but now that you can get that at plus 240, I think that's a decent number, especially with where he's starting.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's starting 7th already. He's top 5 in 2 of the last 3 in the next gen. The other one was when he blew up and he was in line for, you know, battling for a win. Like I had said, dude has 14 top 5s in 31 career races here. Like, that's almost at a 50% clip, and you're getting plus 240. So the number is probably good. It's probably decent odds for that bet. But I mean, when you look at recency, the guy has been 9th or better or 10th or better in, I think it's like 16 of the last 17 trips to this track. So I mean, you got good odds of him potentially cracking the top 5.
It's weird. I don't know if, like, because it's a night race, if they're not as aggressive to put up lines or what's going on, but
yeah, I definitely think a lot of them slowed down the process today, but I think that was based on the fact that there was so much college football going on.
Yeah. All that FanDuel has is outrights. Yeah, let's confirm those numbers before it goes live tomorrow, just to make sure they all math. But I think those are all fine. Hocevar to top 10 is plus 750 on Caesars.
I don't hate that.
A little boosty boost.
Yeah, I also think I know the juice is terrible, but I got to do it. It's Blaney week, folks, which means fade him to high heaven. But Blaney versus Logano, that is getting added. And as I say that, Kyle is probably contemplating adding to it. No.
Well, now I gotta do it.
Yep. Oh man.
We haven't done one of these in a long time.
It's been a long time, yeah, since we've gone head to head in that. It is interesting, like you said, though, to see like the plus money that you can get on decent drivers.
Yeah.
I do really
right.
like the Kyle Busch over Reddick.
You ready to recap the card, give out a best bet, and get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So I have Busch and Verstappen to win on Sunday. It's 20-1 now instead of 16. You know what? I'm just gonna do this. It is KFB week. I'm probably gonna regret this, but I'm gonna go full unit and cry myself to sleep when he wrecks in stage 1. Kyle Busch top Chevy, Kevin Harvick top Ford, Byron top 5, Larson over Truex, Harvick over Bad K, KFB over Reddick, Hamlin added today. I like him a lot. Ryan Blaney to top Ford at plus 450. Love the number. KFB at Reddick went back to that. Logano over Blaney, and then I added a little bit more Kyle Busch and Verstappen at 20-1. Brian, recap your card, give out your best bet.
All right. So earlier in the week, I only had four measly bets, and that was Bubba 30-1 on an outright. Harvick top Ford, which is still in play. Bubba top Toyota, that's trash. And then Bubba Pole obviously already lost. I added a couple outrights, and Ryan Blaney at 18-1. I still don't understand the line movement there. Austin Cindric, only because it's a mistake line over at DK. That'll definitely be gone by the time this hits the airwaves tomorrow morning. Ryan Blaney top 10 at minus 105, another number I don't get. Larson top Chevy, I think he's going to blow past the rest of the Chevys and probably find his way inside the top 5 within the first half of the race. Harvick top 5 just because dude is a king at this track. And then Blaney over Logano just for the field. And then I added Blaney as the top Ford in case he doesn't wind up winning the race, but he still maintains that top 5 speed and, somehow wrecks on the final lap coming to the finish line and allows Austin Cindric to win like he did at the Daytona 500.
I like it. What is your best bet as we sit here Saturday night?
All right. It's actually not one I have on the card yet because I was waiting for this moment, but Kevin Harvick, top 10 at minus 145 over at Caesars. He is a top 10 maestro at this track, 15 of the last 16 or 16 of the last 17 trips. I don't even know at this point. He's lost count, but I don't care what type of speed he's got. He is going to figure out a way to finish inside the top 10, and you're giving me these types of odds. I will take that all day, every day, and cash my ticket happily.
I like it. I'm going to go match up Kyle effin Busch over Tyler Reddick. You can get it at plus money. I did 3 units at plus 100, plus my original minus 110 unit. So I'm way too invested in Kyle Busch. So he's definitely out in stage 1. So fade Kyle Busch, fade Ryan Blaney, win all the money.
Yep.
That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy your race. I will be joining Wry Cape, Sunday morning Sunday at noon on the East Coast. I'll put the link in the bio. for his channel. Make sure you come check that out. We'll be on for 20-30 minutes talking a bunch of initial thoughts, kind of closer to race time. Make sure you subscribe if you get to do that. Make sure you check out our playoff preview with Chris Wormy. We talked a lot of good stuff on there. Brian and I will be back next week to recap Darlington and get ready for Kansas, because we are in fact headed to Kansas. Unlike Dorothy, who is not in Kansas anymore. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.